Well, while Australia continues to lock down our states and push a plethora of restrictions on our people, things are actually taking a turn in the UK. Despite having much higher case numbers than us and a much higher vaccination rate, Prime Minister Boris Johnson has announced his plan for living with COVID. He's declared that the government will change the basic tools they've used to control human behaviour and move away from legal restrictions, allowing people to make their own decisions.
We will change the basic tools that we have used to control human behaviour. We'll move away from legal restrictions and allow people to make their own informed decisions about how to manage the virus.
Imagine that, a government trusting the people to make decisions in their own best interests and using their own common sense. Incredible. And while the final steps of this plan are expected to go ahead on July 19, they will be confirmed after reviewing the latest data. Now, joining me now is the editor of Spiked Online, Brendan ONeill. And Brendan, thanks for joining me. I presume you're going to be delighted that the freedom lovers are going to be able to make decisions for themselves.
I'm very happy indeed. I think this is the right move to make. We are one of the most vaccinated countries in the world. 64% of adults have been double vaccinated. That's an extraordinary number. And Boris is right to say that we now need to take personal responsibility and decide for ourselves if we want to wear masks or if we want to socially distance. These will no longer be legally mandated. It will be a matter of choice. And that's right. But what was extraordinary about his announcement is that the meltdown amongst the chattering classes and the Twitterati and lots of other influential people was just absolutely staggering. And it's very clear now that these people do not trust the public to make up their own minds, do not trust us to exercise personal responsibility, and would like to live in lockdown forever. So there's still a strain of backward regressive thinking that wants us to stay locked down for a long time. But I'm glad that Boris and Sajid Javid, the health secretary, are pushing back against that.
Yes, it's a marked about-face from Boris Johnson. Many of us were starting to doubt the wisdom of his approach to this COVID crisis. But the fact that they're trusting people to act in their own enlightened self-interest, and people will respect the rights and obligations of others, of course, but the lockdowners, they seem to have a broader agenda. As you say, it's a regressive thought policy, but they like the idea that the West is being deindustrialised. They like the idea that more people are dependent on government and just obeying the dictates of government. That's how it would appear to me from across the pond anyway.
Yeah, I think what's happened is that a lot of people have got rather comfortable in lockdown, particularly the more privileged people who can work from home, who live in nice houses, who didn't mind the disruption of the past 18 months. For them, it hasn't been that much of a burden. They've quite enjoyed it, actually, and they've enjoyed looking into the sky and not seeing so many airplanes. They've enjoyed the winding down of industry, the winding down of global trade, and all those other things that have happened. And that's because that's how they think the world should work. But of course, for the vast majority of people, many of whom lost their jobs, many of whom in the developing world were plunged into even greater poverty as a consequence of lockdowns, for those people, this has been a terrible time. So there's a big class divide on the lockdown issue. You know, the upper middle classes quite liked it, and the working classes were quite put out by it. So that's an important point to bear in mind going ahead. The question of whose interest should society be organised in? Should it be the neurotic middle classes who want us to have these restrictions forever, or should it be in the interests of the majority who want to work, who want to be free, and who want to get back to normal?
It's a very big question. The neurotic middle class seem to be, or as I call them, the talking class, they seem to be ruling the roost. But what about within the British government itself? There's been a little bit of conflict there. Boris has been under the pump. Has he suffered a backlash at all within government as a result of this announcement?
I think there have been various backlashes against Boris over the past few months. There's been some backlash in government. Some people, I'm sure, think that he's going too fast or that we should wait a bit longer before we open up properly. But I think for the most part, most politicians, apart from the Labour Party, which seems to want us to stay in lockdown, but most Conservative politicians now recognise that, in Boris's words, it's now or never. We have to open up at some point. We've had 18 months of pretty bad virus. More than 100,000 people died, 3 lockdowns, severe restrictions. It's time now to go back to normal life, to resuscitate the economy, to resuscitate civil liberty, and allow people to make their own choices. So Boris needs to stand firm against the media class who are hectoring for further lockdowns, and against other aspects of the political class who don't seem to care as much for freedom as they ought to. I hope he stands firm, and that on the 19th of July, we really do throw away our masks, end social distancing, and get back to normal.
Yeah, I hope you do too, and I hope it serves as an inspiration for governments right around the world, not least of all our state and federal governments here in Australia. Now, final question, Brendan. Did the idea of lockdowns being liberated from lockdowns inspire the English football team to their greatest glory, or was it the other way around? Have the footballers inspired the country to say enough's enough?
I think there's an interplay between these two things. There's a bit of a buzz in the UK at the moment, particularly in England, of course, because the English team is the one that will be in the semi-finals of the Euros this week, and hopefully in the final at the weekend. And that's created a real sense of occasion and a sense of momentum. And it's kind of propelled us forward, I think, to say, listen, we need to recover all the great things about this society, all the good stuff, the freedom, the football, economic life, people making their own choices. The country is founded on those kinds of ideals and those kinds of pastimes. So I like to think that the England team, who are playing extraordinarily well, they've helped in dragging us forward to what I hope will be a new dawn.
Wise words indeed, Brendan O'Neill. Thanks so much for your time tonight.
Thanks, Corey.